Good afternoon and welcome to Gilead's Sketchbook. I'm doing a little video here and try to paint this little fox. We're going a bit early because there's a company meeting at 5 o'clock. Need to be there. It doesn't take that long to get from here to there, but it takes that long to clean up, change my clothes, get all this stuff out of the way where the cats can't swallow it, and that sort of thing. So it will require the extra time. I'm putting some Liquitex Basics acrylic paint on my little palette. Yellow ochre, burnt sienna, some variant of violet, and some phthalo blue. This is just some cheap craft paint that's I just have. I don't know why we have it. We have it in its black, so we'll see if there's any in here. There might not be. Okay. Shouldn't need much. A couple drops of it. Most likely. This is some Kroger brand seltzer water. It's not actually, it's white acrylic house paint. I had some in a can, and I've had the can forever and ever and probably forever. And the last time I used it, the lid was so rusty it was falling apart and sprinkling rust down into the can of paint and everything. You can't have that; that'll ruin it. So, did my best to fish that out and poured the rest of the can off into this empty bottle that was kicking around. And so that's what that's about. Alright, over yonder I've got two little containers of water. They're clean at the moment. They won't be clean for long. And I'm gonna get a little bit of this yellow. I'm going to pull my photo reference up on my screen. That's too big. It's covering up my view of the video. Alrighty. And I'm just going to get right at it. I had my brush very wet. This brush is very soft. And I had it quite wet. It's kind of watercolory right now. So my painting thus far is rather watercolory. Very, very thin layer of acrylic paint. And this is honestly quite close to the color of this guy. You look at them and you think, oh, orange. Or you lean towards a dark brown like this, burnt sienna, which is more of a medium brown. But honestly, this yellow ochre just about does it. Just about gets us where we need to be. And I put the tiny little drop in there. Yeah, there's my thumb. A tiny little drop. That was probably too much paint. But that's alright. Paint was cheap and I bought it a long time ago. And I need to use it because in a way it's starting to dry up in the tube. But for a painting this small, which is it's smaller than my hand, Um, this honestly was more paint than I needed. Now I'm coming back again, and I'm doing it just a bit thicker. Um, I want to really get some paint in there, and I have it, and I have too much of it apparently, so I don't need to be careful. And if I turn out to not have enough somehow, I'll just come back. I've got some still in the tube, and I'll go get some more. Now, it had been my intention to use mostly this burnt sienna for this color that we've been doing, but I'm not going to use mostly that. I'm going to use mostly this, but I'm going to use the burnt sienna mixed in with the yellow ochre as a shadow color. You can see that I did a lot of work with pen and ink initially. In fact, I had no intention of painting this initially. I had no intentions whatsoever. I was sitting there. I had been reading about pen and ink work and said, "Oh, I should do a thing just to get some practice in." And I had seen this photograph of a fox and thought it was really cool, and so I sat there and did this pen and ink sketch of a fox. So no plan other than do some pen and ink work because I felt like it, and here we are. Doing stuff and smearing it back out with my fingertip, and it just gives it a little bit of a blur, a blend. Um, there's no harm to it. You make a mark on your canvas any way you feel like. If you like the result, then there you go. Some of us are trying to make a living from art, but we're doing so because we love doing art. But there's also a calling to, try to make a living. But it's not the only reason to do art, and you don't have to be like, oh, this has to be so good that somebody will pay me millions of dollars for it, or else I should throw it away. There are people who believe such, and it's so sad because they make something, they're really quite proud of it, and then they or someone else in their life convinces them that you couldn't sell it for $1 million, therefore you should be ashamed of it. There's some level, whether somebody actually, directly says, those kinds of hurtful words to you, or whether they get your mind there by whatever other means, by saying, was that a productive use of your time? Or, that sort of thing. There's those sorts of, there's those sorts of ways to be unsupportive, and well, there's just better. There's other reasons, not necessarily better or worse, but other reasons to be producing art, such as it makes you feel good, or it makes you happy, or you want to make Christmas cards for your family and your friends, or here my alarm's going off to tell me in 15 minutes I need to make a video. Thank you, alarm. I appreciate your input. Yes, if it makes you happy, if it brings you peace, gives you calm, gives you joy. I'll tell you what, right at the moment, mixing this little lavender color and this white paint, and doing these brush strokes, I can't tell you why. That just brings me pleasure. I really like the way those things blended together on the page. I love the way this is doing this. It's not precisely what I had expected. But I like it. You can do art to send a message, a political message, make a statement, to drive world peace, or to advertise a product. It's all quite legit. I suppose there's ways to do it that aren't quite legit. Propaganda posters for some evil agenda. You can do art. You can do art just to do it, just for yourself. It doesn't have to be good. It doesn't have to sell. There's a lot of things going on in the world. And when you heard that statement, you probably thought about politics, and you're welcome to do so. There's that. But in my world, more locally, there's yet more things. Lots of other things. The things I can't control, the things I can't fix. Some of them are my fault, and yet they've happened, and they're decisions that are well behind me, and I cannot undo them. I am where I am. And it's going to be what it is going forward. And that sounds flippant, if you're thinking, oh, well, that was a bad thing you did back then. You really should not have done that. You sound flippant. I'm not trying to sound flippant. I just don't have the wherewithal to alter things at this point. And no, you don't need examples. It's not what this is about. It's just, I'm just trying to say, here we are, you know? We're here, right here. And, what are we going to do with this here? Perhaps this is not the life I wanted to live. Perhaps I should have done all kinds of things that would make me wealthier or whatever. Perhaps there's no perhaps about it. Perhaps I really should have. You know, yes, you just should have. Okay. Okay, I accept that. Um, but here we are. And so now the question is, where do you want to go from here? If we're talking politics, I really can't do anything about it. If we're talking about the money that's in my bank account, well, I can work hard and try to alter that, but um, will it be helpful to talk about the things I should have done in the past? Not at this point. That conversation might have been helpful 40 years ago. Not at this point. Even when I decided that I was going to paint on this piece of paper, I had not decided I was going to paint the background. It was not my plan. I made that decision right here. Right here in front of your face. And I'm not going to swear it was the best decision. I'm just going to say I made that decision right now. And we're rolling with it. It just kind of seemed like something I wanted to do. I felt like the rest of the fox, once there was color on it, I felt like it didn't jump off the page as much as I wanted it to. there's much going on, and I lack physical prowess. I'd love to be a superhero, fly in the air and fix problems. That would be kind of awesome. It'd be kind of awesome if somebody else would do it, but I don't see anybody doing that. But I'd love to do that. I'd love to be a guy with just a shocking amount of resources and money and capabilities. Um, the kind of guy you see in movies and TV shows. There's a problem, and he says, "Leave it with me," and things just start happening. People start showing up, and yeah, accounts get frozen, and things just happen. Things just happen, and stuff changes, and the bad guys will go, "Oh, I was bad, and now I'm paying the consequences." Yeah, I'll, I'll do that if I can, but uh, no, there doesn't appear to be any such thing for us to be doing. Um, I'm not even young anymore. I'm out of shape, and I have zero money. I know people think, "Oh, well, that's an exaggeration. Obviously, you don't have zero money. You live in an apartment. You don't have zero money." No. And I don't say those things to complain or try to galvanize you into giving me money or anything. I'm saying those things to build context, the context being that just in case you're thinking, "Oh, well, there are things you can do. Here's some things you can do." Whatever you're about to suggest, very, very likely no. That isn't something I can do. That's something somebody can do, but most likely not me. It's probably not something I can do. I have very, very little that I can do. Don't even have a car. People say, "Oh, get over to this protest." I won't be getting over to that protest. Don't have a car. But I was kind of despairing about it a while back, saying, "Well, there's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do." And I felt like giving up. And I don't think it's going to be the last time in my life that I ever feel like giving up. Some of us kind of have that in us. Call it depression or lack of self-esteem or anxiety. I really don't know. To tell you the honest truth, all of that is kind of new to me. I may have felt it all my life, but acknowledging that I might actually have a condition is not something I ever used to think about. I quite possibly didn't have it. No, quite possibly it's new. But at any rate, I often come back around to there's no way out of this, despair. And so I was talking about it, and somebody was telling me, you make art, and I look forward to seeing your art. I mean, I've had people actually tell me, I get out of bed and I think to myself, oh, I bet Gilead's posted something. And I go and look, and sure enough, you've posted something, and I feel a little bit better because Gilead made some art, and you don't know, you never know what he's gonna make. It might be a naked lady, it might be a fox, it might be a frog, it might be sword and sorcery, it might be a sign for a bird feeding store. I mean, and it's just, but this guy's out there and he just keeps making art. He just keeps doing it. All this stuff we keep fussing about, and we keep, you know, and all these people who have changed, who have gotten angry at each other, who don't get along anymore, or who have given up in despair and don't make their art anymore. Writers who don't write, and people who've been frightened off with what they're doing, and then Gil just keeps making his art. Well, Gil frequently doesn't feel like that makes any difference. I often just think, well, yeah, I do, but so what? Um, and I think maybe I shouldn't. Maybe this is all just so trivial compared with what the world really needs, and I can't give the world what it needs. Maybe I need to just shut my noise off and stop contributing to the chatter so that other people have the bandwidth to um, do things that they need, that need doing, and I think that sort of thing. And I wonder if maybe I should shut up. Um, and and then somebody tells me, no, no, you need to keep making art and keep sharing art, and it's important. And when I put something out in the hopes that it's important, it's not because I'm thinking, oh, in today's world of political turmoil, you need to see my painting of a fox. Um, I'm not thinking that, but I've been told that. I've been told that it matters, um, that there are people looking, literally going online to look for this right here, um, because they feel better when they see it, and they don't know what it's going to be, but there's that guy that's going to make some art, and of course they follow other people on the internet just because Gilead's drawing random pictures, um, but they're going out and looking for things like this, and things like this make them feel better, and that makes me feel better and gives me some sense of I almost said some sense of purpose. That sounds trite, but I can't think of a better expression. Validation sounds almost more too buzzy, too buzzwordy, but it is closer to what I'm thinking. And sometimes you'll read an article where somebody is contemptuous of those people who need validation. They're posting online all the time because they constant need of validation. Well, guess what? I need validation, and does me good when somebody says, uh, this made a difference to me. This made me happy today. This lifted my spirits a bit today. Um, I gave them something and they gave me something by telling me that I gave them something. So, yeah, I'll be the guy that goes online looking for validation. Thank you very much. And I'm certainly not going to make any claims about how I ended the war, stopped the war from happening, or you know, saved lives. It happened once, years and years ago. I painted a sign on an ice cream shop, and the owner of the ice cream shop called me a month later and told me I saved their life, which I thought was a massive overstatement until they described um, the mental and financial state that they had been in right before I walked through the door there of their shop, and it turned out uh, they had been right on the brink of closing, like literally on the brink. It was a family business, and they had gone into they'd had a meeting, and they'd stood there and made the decision to quit trying because it just wasn't working. They had $75 in the till, and that was literally the entirety of all the money that family had in the entire world. That was it. Um, they had spent their life savings, they had spent their retirement, they had spent the children's college fund. The children were young adults, and they were standing there hating their parents because they weren't going to get to go to college, and the parents had blown all the money on this business venture that had failed, and they had been in there trying to help them. Everybody had poured everything into it. She said my husband didn't know it, but I was going to file for divorce as soon as we were able, and um, I didn't know that he planned to go home and put a bullet in his brain. Uh, he was planning that as we stood there, and we didn't know it, but then you walked through the door and said you could make a sign for $75, and that was just, it just seemed astonishing that was just, that number. Not just that you showed up at that moment, but that number, of all numbers, that it was $75, and I had I had taken note of the weird body language and the weird looks they had given each other, and none of which I understood, and I thought, these people are a little strange, but yeah, they had done that, and when they had uh, decided to take me up on my offer, they went into a little huddle, and they decided, I guess, that $75 wasn't going to make a difference one way or the other. They might as well spend it on one last gamble, and and it turned out to be a good gamble. I put them back in business. The sign put them back in business, and so saved somebody's life. But I didn't know that, and I didn't really intend to be honest. I mean, I intended to go make a, to go make some money, make $75. That's what I intended to do. And I just did my job, and got my pay, and It attracted so much business to the so many people to the business that that they were just busy as anything. By the time they were paying me, they had a pile of money in the cash register, and the woman was in tears and everything. I thought, wow, she's really extreme. Um, but I went my way and forgot about it, and then she called me up a month later and told me the story. So these things happen, and and I'm nothing special. I mean, you have you have had that impact on somebody's life. I mean, you smiled and said hello to somebody who decided at that moment not to kill themselves, or you know, when you were a cashier, you did something helpful just at that moment, just at that precise moment when somebody had decided, everybody's terrible. Nobody's, there are no good people. Um, you were very pleasant and nice and helpful, and possibly steered somebody away from a bad purchase decision and helped them to make a good decision, and they were so grateful that that you actually changed their life. Um, and most people are not going to track you down and tell you. They'd be embarrassed to, or they just don't know how to, or they may not even be all that conscious of what it was that changed their mind, but still, they went from being in a dismal place to being in a more positive place, and you made that difference. You did. Um, I have no, there's no doubt. There's no ambiguity in my mind. There's, you know, you did. You made that kind of difference to somebody. Um, that's an absolute. And well, it's a wonderful thing. We can all despair if we choose to. And and if I choose not to, well, that's going to be a struggle some days. There's a there's a big mean psychotic monkey that lives in the back of my skull, and I've tried kicking him out, and sometimes I think I did kick him out, but then there he is again, and he tells me things like, "You're used up. You're worthless. You may have had significance once, but no more." He tells me those things, and there's days that I know to ignore him, and there's days that I think, yeah, that's right. I had a good upbringing. Like to. I don't like knowing that I sound like I didn't. But we all can't help the fact that at some point somebody said something to us that they really shouldn't have said. They thought they were steering you right, but your takeaway was possibly exactly the opposite of what they wanted your takeaway to be, or they didn't think about it. When somebody says, "Oh, this could make things better," well, you're saying things are bad. Um, I didn't mean to tell you things were bad, but uh, I wanted to tell you things could get better. But of course, that implies that things are bad. And so now that person's over there thinking, "What have I done that was so bad?" So that was just an example. You can't know how somebody else is going to take stuff, and you can't help the fact that people said things to you that they shouldn't have said. And you were a child, and it formed the way you think, the way you think about the world, the way you think about yourself, about relationships. I mean, it follows you your whole life. And um, okay, you know, your mom or dad can't be put up on the rack for that for the rest of their existence, or beyond their existence. There's a point where you have to let go of the fact that let go of being angry at that particular person for saying that to you, but you still got to deal with the fact that you have a knee-jerk reaction to take things in a particular way. And you've got to grapple with that. You may always have to grapple with that. So yes, I grapple with condemnation, a condemnation that was given to me in my youth, uh, in the hopes of making me strive to be a better person. I know that, but obviously, strive to be better means you're bad, and sometimes that's the only part that stays with me is you're bad. Um, and that's it. That's what I carry with me for forever. It's not the thing that could make you good, or even knowing, fully comprehending what it was they wanted me to do. Just when I look back, all I can remember is that person thinks I was bad, and then I feel sorry for myself about it, but I can't get over it. And sometimes this little monkey in the back of my brain says, "You're bad. You and your stupid fox." But I really like this fox. Really like it. I do the kind of thing I'm doing right here. I'm not attempting to paint every single hair on this fox's head. I don't want to. But sometimes I want to have brush strokes that look a bit like a whole area. You know, not every hair, but and not a clump of hair, because his hair's not clumpy, but just a, you know, he may have a little shape where his brow wrinkles, and that that little shape is just a bit different than the rest of his forehead. So the hairs kind of point in a slightly different direction. They catch the light a little bit different. And I want to capture that. Like I say, not with every single hair, just with a suggestion of all that hair in it. When you're, if you were learning, if you were in, you know, in the middle somewhere, you're kind of bouncing between painting every single hair on the head of this fox and painting clumps that look like the fox has got mange, but you know, you're trying to give him you're trying to give him that look. You know, like, I'm not drawing individual hairs, I'm drawing, you know, areas, but it comes out looking clumpy, like there's something wrong with him. And the answer to that is, I'm sorry, but you're just going to have to do a lot more of them. A lot. Until you start getting better at it. Where I am right now is I have done some more of them, so I'm some better at it. Haven't done a lot more, I've done some more. Not an expert at it, but I'm better at it. Once upon a time, when I was a sign painter, I had been a fan of Frank Frazetta for ages and ages. And then I find out that he had ghosted the Al Cap comics. So he had, everybody knows Al Cap was the cartoonist, but Frazetta and I think other people did some of them. Some of the cartoons. Frazetta did a lot of them. For 10 years, that was his job. And he got a lot of his training, a lot of what made him the artist that he became. He really developed those skills while doing that comic strip. The anatomy, but somewhat exaggerated anatomy, somewhat simplified and hyperbolized. You know, everybody was running, you know, fists in the air or flying, taking flying leaps, or you know, just extreme action. Everything was just extreme action, and his illustrations were like that later on, and you could see that the influence of one on the other when you look at them, and for a while I kind of got the wrong end of the stick, and I said, "Oh, I've got to go uh, do a comic strip for 10 years. That'll put me in a position to be, a good fantasy artist." And of course, that's completely wrong. The thing that made it work was that Frazetta did what he was good at. So when he was good at um, doing that outcap comic strip, and when he turned to illustration, he just continued to do what he was good at. And so he made fantasy characters like Conan look very much like Little Abner comic strips. That's what he was good at. And at some point I said, yeah, I'm being a big dummy. And so I started producing fantasy art that looked like sign painting. And that's when I came up with, I don't know, all the octopus art, a bunch of things that I did. But I did a whole phase of my life where I made fantasy art that looked very much like a sign painter had made it. And a sign painter had made it. And so that was my strength. I was good at sign painting. So I made fantasy art that was like sign painting. I don't know if you can see it, but the sign painter is still here. The sign painter is in this piece of art right now. I think possibly the reason I chose to paint a fox on a blue background was because it was orange just juxtaposed against blue, and that's high contrast. And the sign painter in me wants to do high contrast. I paint orange lettering on a blue background. That's me. That's what I'm good at. That's what I do, and it comes out in my other paintings as well. And that's good. It's better to play your strength than to try to play your weakness. There are purists in the world who will say, at this point you're painting. You're painting with a brush. Ergo, when you go to do the whiskers, you must do them with a brush. You must find a very fine tip brush, or you must find a way to use a larger brush to make a fine point. But it must be a brush, and it must be with paint. Like I say, some people have a psychotic monkey in the back of their brain yelling nonsense at them. Do it that way if you want to. If it's a when you do it and you accomplish it and it comes out well, You're going to feel very good about yourself, and that's good. Feeling good is good. But if you don't want to, just get a pen and make the whiskers with a pen, which is what I'm going to do. And I've gone back and forth a couple times making the pupil on that eye. I put it too far over here and too far over here, and so I'm trying to return this spot to uh, I'm going to try to return it just to the yellow, lifted a little bit of paint off of it. I'll return it just to the yellow, and then I'll come back with that paint, with that brush, when this is dry. And I will put his pupil in at the same time that I put his whiskers in. All right then, I think that's all right. And it is not the greatest painting in the whole wide world ever. However, that is the voice of the monkey in my brain, and that monkey can leave me alone because he's not the boss of me. I like this painting, it's fun. And it has no other purpose. Stella Rose here, Sharon's here. Sharon says, bad monkey. Thank you. And Forrest E. Getter says, if you're looking for a home for that when you are done, my son loves foxes. Well, then we're going to talk. We'll make that happen. And yes, I'm always looking for a home for my art. It may or may not be that I set out to do something for a sale. I mean, but having done it, yeah, I'd rather send it to somebody and then put it away in a filing cabinet. So absolutely. And Sharon says, "What a fox! Shut up, monkey." uh, yeah, yeah. Actually, quite like monkeys. It's sort of an unfortunate metaphor. Anyhow, I'm going to be done now, and I'm gonna go wash up and change and go to the meeting. So thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. And if I well, to I wanted to do this as a series of short videos I could put on YouTube, and realized at the last minute that I wasn't set up to do that. Uh, you have to turn the format sideways. I think there's a way to convert that after the fact. Yeah, I mean, it's going to cut some of all this stuff that's over here where my fingers are waggling. It's going to get cut out. So I might have pointed to some paint or something that might not show on the screen, things like that. But anyway, I might do that anyway, and if I can figure out how to do it and edit out, like make little. They want them 3 minutes long, and they want them vertical formats. So if I can chop this whole thing into a bunch of 3-minute sections, I'm going to do it. Otherwise, we'll just come back and do something else. So thank you all, and good night.